Hi everyone, welcome to my Design Pop Trends series. This is Karen, and I'm so excited to have my guests here, Haley and Michelle from Tabarka Studio, which is a beautiful, bespoke tile studio located in LA and in other locations around the United States. So Haley and Michelle, I would love to introduce each of you. Can you tell me a little bit about who you are and Tabarka?
Absolutely. We're so happy to be here with you. Thank you for including us. I am based in Los Angeles. I helped open our flagship space just over 2 years ago. So we have been very much an industry leader in surfaces, particularly that of our hand-painted terracotta collections that we've distributed nationwide and internationally with partnered vendors like Walker Zanger and Saks Exquisite Surfaces. And we were thrilled to now have our own space to showcase our materials and now be in a position to work directly with trade and retail clients out of this location. And then as well in Scottsdale, Arizona, where our production studio is based, where Michelle leads our wonderful showroom there.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm out of the Scottsdale studio, and my partner, who you can't see on the screen, but who's staring at me, is Cassie. And we're a wonderful team of two here in Scottsdale, and we partner with Haley on a daily basis. And we're happy to join this call. This is fun.
Well, I'm going to share my screen in a minute. Are you open though?
Scottsdale is by appointment.
Wow, you're lucky. That's so nice. And
we are also open by appointment, generally open by appointment. There's not a lot of movement in Los Angeles right now in wanting to get into spaces.
Really?
So we're navigating that on a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
So you think LA is quiet. What about Scottsdale? Do
you know what? We've been moving. Everyone's obviously taking precautions and being sensitive to the situations, but I think we've learned here in Arizona, construction hasn't stopped. So designers still have their deadlines, and we've been here to support them as needed.
Yeah, I'd say here in New Jersey, we are kind of not supposed to be doing anything, but there's definitely a prohibition black market for construction, no question about it. So anyway, I think every week I introduce myself. For those who don't know me, I'm Karen of Karen B. Wolf Interiors, and we are known as a studio for our layered modern interiors, and we include color thoughtfully and definitely include texture. So we covered that we're going to be speaking with Tabarka, as we are now, and in general discussing tile trends, tips, and takeaways. So Tabarka, I was first introduced to them a while ago when I posted this water jet mosaic on my Instagram. I don't even think I realized who I was posting it from. It just caught my eye and I fell in love. And it was one of the most popular Instagram posts that I had done. And then I started following them, and every once in a while I would post one of their products. And then somebody connected us for this exact Zoom series. And when I went online, my mouth fell open because I really never ever saw the breadth and beauty of your product lines and how many different categories that you cover. So let's go through, the different areas. I know that, for example, rustic terracotta or the terracotta is what you're originally known for, right? And then you want to just walk us through the other categories that you also produce.
Absolutely. So we began with our signature hand-painted terracotta collections featured on the lower row there. So with that, yes.
Yeah.
Overall and throughout our collections, our aesthetic is very much based in the embrace of old world aesthetic and really incorporating global influence, be it with pattern or with the materials being used. So we have expanded to include water jet mosaic that incorporates terrazzo as well as marble and even true high density oak, which is unique to us in particular. You see quite a bit of porcelain made to look like oak material, but that's sort of a special quality that that line has for us as well. We also are working with color blocking in a new way for our collections, with our encaustic cement line being Kavim, as well as the Basil collection, which is terrazzo with brass inlay. So you'll see a really cohesive tone throughout each of our lines in terms of the way that the colors and texture play together, but all very much rooted in this old world sense of tradition.
How did Tabarka come to be? Like, what is the story behind Tabarka? And where, I know that you guys kind of call yourself a modern day atelier. So how did it evolve? Who is the owner or the creative vision behind the company?
So our owners, Mayor Zanotti and his lovely wife, Yvonne Zanotti, began sort of their creative process and journey to discovering this world of materials through their personal travels that they continue to really prioritize with their family. So on a trip in Istanbul, they were searching for a very specific, idyllic type of Moroccan, like rich textured tile, and realized that there's a real, a market for that look that's not being, produced in a way that truly honors the history of that.
I think you guys were really among the first to create this hand-painted terracotta, like not to create it, but to make it popular and to popularize it. And now we're seeing this look, emerge in the industry, and, not just with you guys, unfortunately, but with other players too. But I think you guys were definitely the leaders in that.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome. And I also think, what's amazing is how, probably because you're so bespoke and your product is of such high quality, and typically you see the trends start in the luxury market, but you're ahead of, if not, you're definitely ahead of some of the trends that are occurring or starting them. So in terms of tile trends, materials, and finishes, like for what I'm seeing happen in the industry, just as, a designer, and I'm sure you guys can speak to this because your product line completely parallels it, but encaustic tile, which I'm going to go back here, is technically hand-painted cement, right? Do you want to give the technical explanation of encaustic tile?
Sure. So encaustic tile being versus a painted surface, it's actually a pigmented material, like a handcrafted, in that the craftsmen and artisans are pouring the pigmented cement into a mold, and it's an actual like a wear layer on the tile surface, making it a more intricate and artisanal production process. And therefore, encaustic cement tile tends to be offered at a higher price point than a painted cement would be.
Right.
It's a very old world surface in that way, and wears beautifully with patina, and it's very, very traditional.
So I was explaining that from a layman's perspective, I feel like the term encaustic has been used now just to describe anything that looks old world with patterning, like in this image with the arch. But that's technically hand painted terracotta in this instance. And then you have this look that's now being applied to like porcelain, and it might be printed on top of the porcelain. But so it's really not encaustic, it's a misnomer, but that phrase right now is just being used generically to kind of describe this look. Terracotta, we just discussed, is like a huge trend in the industry, and cement, we know. Terrazzo, I covered last week actually in my trends presentation with Philip Jeffries, because they launched a whole terrazzo wallpaper line, and I was shocked to see that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was beautiful actually. But I think one of the biggest things I'm seeing is the hand glazed tonal variations, and this like distressed edging look. To me, that's like kind of taken, if you like just put a subway tile up in your kitchen now and it's flat, it's not going, people aren't doing that anymore, but they'll take the subway shape And now with this hand glazed tonal variation, it's taken on a whole new life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Like so a glaze tile, like we were discussing, from clay, from a wonderful tile company, Clay, that does a lot of beautiful work as well. Field tile with sort of, we call it the perfectly imperfect. So little chips and cracks that give a tile character and actually become very minimized upon installation when you're looking at the cohesive install and space. It just adds character and like a very rich quality to the space.
Right. Even if you look at the image on the top left of that screen, by all definition, those are subway shaped, but our subway, there's such beautiful textural surface to it, imperfections, indentations that give it a beautiful just textural surface as opposed to just a flat machine made subway tile.
Exactly. And I'm about to do a kitchen with an ombre glazed subway tile. So, the variation in that is going to be beautiful. So I think, tile today, whether it's handmade or if it can be enhanced, through machinery for the sculptural trend that we're seeing in the architectural trend, has really become so much more. There's so much more creativity occurring in the tile world, but at the same time, it's becoming even more and more timeless. So going back to technique and process, I mean, you guys really have an old world process at hand in terms of how you're making your tile. Can you describe how, because I think it's cool, how you're doing it? So what's the first step?
The first step being the finished raw bisque. We apply a layer of field color, being Lavon, which we call our bright white, as opposed to an off-white.
I have a question. Is Lavon just yours, or is Lavon an industry term for any field color?
No, Lavon is the term that we use to describe that color. And so many, as you can probably see with our collection names and even color names, like our beautiful olive green is named Zatar. These are all sort of influenced by Marin Yvonne's personal history and also priority in embracing European culture in the Middle East. And so I believe Lavon, I feel like it means paper. I may be mistaken, but it's our bright white, and it's a term specific to us. So Lavon field colors applied, it's finished in the kiln, and then for our patterned tile, so any of that hand-painted collection that has the more intricate decos, there's a step-by-step process in terms of applying the multiple colorways to create those patterns. So between applications, the tile is again kiln dried, and then the beautiful antiqued sort of patinaed quality that is actually optional and achieves our off-white color, that's applied as the final step to for clients who opt for the more old world look versus an updated, more contemporary. The Lavon may work well in combination or when pairing with like a quartz countertop versus like a rich Calcutta gold with a lot of warmth, which would work beautifully with our off-white field color, for instance.
So there's a lot of product variety. Like, what's the variance in product variety when it comes out of the kiln? Like, how much of it is within the norm of what you would accept versus kind of like not acceptable, because it's each time it's a different batch, it's hand painted by hand, like it's always different, right?
There's definitely an intensive quality control component, and our production manager Avi is a wonderful human being with a lot of character himself, just like our tile, but he and his team, it's a small scale team too, where, as you know, Marin Yvonne, it's a very family owned and operated business, and our artisan team is, I don't believe, more than like 20-25 people that are crafting an immense amount of tile that's shipping nationwide and even internationally. But they do really go through each order, and if a certain piece isn't up to par, we're tossing that out and really going through. There's a limit to how much character we want to have within each order.
Right. Amazing. So I always do this every session. So let's do a poll. This is like a really, really good mix or example of your hand-painted terracottas, which I think are, from my perspective, that's the most in-depth portion of your line and also what you're kind of known for. So I picked some of my favorites and put them here in each category. So if everyone wants to vote right now, you can go into chat and basically, or vote, period. You can vote and pick which ones you love right now. And so while we're doing that, just to give you a little history, like I'm not going to even pronounce the first one because I'm going to butcher it, but what is the inspiration behind this
Rue de Rossier collection that Michelle and I and our team, I often refer to it as RDR, just to make it simple for people.
We have very exotic names for our tiles, so we do a lot of abbreviations because we butcher it otherwise.
Got it.
Yeah.
So that pattern, for instance, is from that very French oriented collection. But interestingly, and this is something I learned from our owner directly, that we don't note about the collection, but he was actually inspired by Japanese textiles when crafting several of these patterns for this line. So you can really see that with that piece in particular, and sort of that inspiration reads pretty directly, like with our Mediterranean collection, very much more of that area of the world geographically, and the more traditional Spanish tiles versus Canyon, which is behind the pole right here. But that was that's our most recent collection, actually, that embraces a bit more of potentially a very transitional, more geometric collection, but is also influenced by the landscape surrounding our production studio in Scottsdale. So those beautiful colors, like, the gorgeous desert sunsets that we see there. So
which one of these do you think would be the winner?
What do you think, Michelle?
I'm probably I don't know. I think Mediterranean's probably going to be a popular vote.
And what do you think, Haley?
I'll say...
Or Nord. I want to reserve the right to make it a tie.
You picked all of some of my personal favorites too. I would say the Maghreb's a really interesting pattern. That zigzag is super cool. And then the Zaha 17 has been getting a lot of...
So I don't know if anyone cares what I love, but my top...
Of course we do.
Zaha 1, Zaha 17, and Torag I love.
Yeah.
But the winner... Oh, you're so right. It's Mediterranean.
Yay.
There you go, Michelle.
I seriously am shocked. I don't know why. And then this one that I can't say because I didn't take French, Rue, whatever. That's number 2. Which I'm surprised at. I thought it was pretty, but I really thought Zaha 1 was going to seriously win. Yeah. But anyway.
Zaha 1's one of my favorites. I will encourage people to go on our web and explore all the different family groups. And you'll find, I think once you start exploring, you'll find that it's hard to truly pick a favorite.
Yes.
Okay. So moving along, because I love doing that. It's like I love doing the polls. I think we touched on color, so I'm going to kind of gloss over this. But in general, you can see that the palettes are dusty, like you said, and they're rooted in more of historical references, and they're also they're livable, and they're mimicking, in my opinion, what I call the millennial palette, which is this blush, this kind of like blue gray, this sagey green, and then a touch of gray, a touch of cream, and a touch of black. So this is definitely an on-track palette. I really wanted to cover this. I'm excited that I put this whole section in because I think this is what most people ask designers. And then I'm sure this is what people walk into a design studio and say is like, well, is this on trend? Is this going to last? Is this timeless? They don't want to make a mistake. And especially with tile, I feel like people are a little bit even more worried because it's just not that easy to take down once you put it up. So people can get a little bit more cautious about it, and your tile clearly is statement tile. The good news is we're seeing this look be used more daringly, I think. And then with your product line, it's very easy to use daringly because it's a commitment, but it's not like an in-your-face commitment. So we are definitely seeing focal walls where tile is basically looking like wallpaper. Then we're seeing the backsplash no longer goes up to just this point in the kitchen because either there's open shelving or people are tiling like all the way up and around their windows and up and around the hood. So there's more opportunity for tile in a kitchen, and it's also looking like a wallpaper wall. And then this whole black and white Lorca marble, it's your Lorca marble, but it's this whole black and white usage of tile that reminds me of the 90s. So in particular, I love how you guys spoke about the bottom image. If you want to explain, what's happening here and why you think this is so on trend.
Certainly on trend, but also very timeless, particularly that bottom image. That's our Spanish Lorca marble. So you can see, again, as Michelle had recommended on our website, you can see that much more of the character of this material. There's so much movement and color variation from piece to piece, which really is in keeping with our collections overall. And that serves as a perfect complement to, our handcrafted, varied in color pattern tile. So in that way, it's a very, very timeless image and installation.
And I love it too, because I think it really lends itself beautifully. There's the whole movement towards, black steel windows. And then another movement in terms of the updated Tudor that's basically being whited out on the outside. The windows are being replaced with the black, steel windows or just even black framed windows. And this look is it's grounded, and it is, it's really, like you said, classic. So other tile looks that I'm seeing emerge, the semi-precious, which Tabarka, you put a lot of the semi-precious elements into your line. Like we didn't even touch on the fact that you have a whole wood parquet line that has metal insets in it, which is really unbelievable to me. Large scale floors is a huge trend. So from my perspective, small tile is not a thing right now. People want, a larger format, whether it's in a porcelain or even in these geometric designs. Marble today is definitely being modernized, either in the scale, in the type of material that we're bringing in, like a more exotic marble, and then in the use of a marble pattern on a tile, so making tile look like it's marble. And then last, florals, and I think we're going to speak to florals later because I know we're going to get a little sneak peek, but are you seeing this whole floral trend emerge as well on tile, where it's not just in print and in fabric?
Absolutely, yeah. And to your point with the last slide as well, with carrying tile from countertop to ceiling and really using tile like wallpaper, that floral quality is that much more present, more and more. And doing that and choosing to tile an entire wall, even in a small space, that can make a space feel so much larger because it's visually your eye is carrying the tile pattern all the way up to the ceiling and making it feel so much more expansive.
I love that look. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. Another trend that I'm seeing is, instead of like the half wall, which we've seen a lot, if you want a more traditional take on a partial wall, I'm seeing 3/4 walls and walls go up higher so that, it looks more exaggerated. And then also how you end the wall. And I know you guys gave me a great example of like mitering the edge with another tile. I don't know if anyone knows what a mitered, it's really hard to explain, but what a mitered edge is when two pieces of tile meet at a 90-degree angle. Here they used a Schluter, I think. What do you think? That looks like a black Schluter to me, which is like a metal, or it might be a bowler.
Yeah.
Wooden concrete is really strong. That was kind of 80s, and it's back again as well. This whole industrial look. And then moody bathrooms, like I always tell my clients, what do you want to shower in? Like when when you're in your bathroom, what do you want it to feel like? And then that should be what your bathroom is, which kind of goes against this whole trend thing. But at the same time, then you start seeing the images and then they start trending and that becomes a trend. So, we have this dark bathroom movement. And I think that people are just becoming so much more comfortable with expressing themselves in their homes and taking ownership of their design decisions. So a dark bathroom
oriented.
Yeah, is definitely more mood based.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite trends, which is a seamless shower floor. So instead of having a curb at the base of your shower, you're basically bringing the whole floor into the shower floor so that it looks much more expansive and modern that way. Mm-hmm. And I think you need a linear drain for that. The niche has been around. What we've been seeing is the niche kind of becoming seamless, going left to right and picking up the same look as the back, so that it's kind of integrated. It's not a focal point, but it serves a function. I love how they lit this here. I think that's so cool. Sculptural tile. This is one of your shots, right? Do you got?
Yes. This is from our Lust collection, which incorporates like a relief effect. So it's actually dimensional tile, which is really interesting to work with. So you play with,
it's
shadow
beautiful.
in a different way.
And again, because your product is time worn, this looks like it's been there forever, and it doesn't look like it's ever going to go away. And then a more fun approach right here are the stair risers I actually think it's brilliant, because how many people kick their stair risers and mark it up and then have to repaint them every year?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So this is a great trend. And then last, I hate to say it, but there is a movement towards minimal tile. For us, what we do and what I've found is we use less tiles in a space than we used to. So we're not necessarily a minimal tile user, because we love the excitement of like a Tabarka style tile, and we would definitely use that in a focal space. But we're just maybe using 2 materials in one room, 3 at the max, instead of, in the past it might have been 4 or 5. So, just to comment on previous tile looks, I'm not going to get into this in that much depth, but all of these looks that we've seen that have been around, like a framed, a frame out on a wall, a framed rug border, a regular border, they're not going to go anywhere. But they're definitely being reinterpreted, like how I showed you the niche, or they're being used at the right time when somebody wants a more traditional take. And then I think maybe the diagonal tile is not such a look at the moment. Same thing with like incorporating bullnose back into a tile or into a bathroom. You guys probably see that more because your tile's historical or traditional in nature. Do you see a lot of people using trim again and stacking it up?
I think in my market, for a certain look, the trim goes a long way, but then juxtaposed to that and more of a cleaned up modern aesthetic, we still have found ways to do our handmade older looking tile, but then we've completely eliminated trims and just glazed the edges and stop it, and it works well that way as well. So it's where it calls for it.
Yep. I think 2 things though that aren't really happening as significantly are small niches. I think the niche has gone much bigger in a shower, and then also porcelain that looks like Carrara, or any porcelain that looks like a marble, has to be well done. There have been so many versions of it out there that the poor quality ones don't. You have to really be careful when choosing this to make sure that it definitely looks as authentic as possible, or it could kill your whole bathroom. So in terms of tile designs, again, Tabarka's product lends itself beautifully to an overall design because it's built into the tile. But what we're also seeing is a really unique usage of tile to create more interesting designs. So instead of just a herringbone, this is an example of like a double herringbone So it took a subway tile and really converted it into something special. Here you're putting bullnose in and creating a design with that. And then I know in your line, this whole mix and match geometric thing is huge in the industry. Do you have a portion of the line that lends itself really nicely to that? Which product category is that?
We do our basil collection, again, with that brass inlay, different patterns that can just work really beautifully with either field tile, like what you're seeing here. Certain pieces have a pattern, but they're playing with scale and repeat in an interesting way by incorporating just the field dusty pink. So our basil collection really encourages that, as well as our Kavim color blocking line.
And then also too, I think even with our hand painted, our Canyon line.
Yeah.
Series that's playing on geometrics.
I agree. So this is an area right here where I think people like who are trying to figure out their tile walls themselves probably would go to a showroom or a designer and say like, help, how do I do this? Because it's not always pre-formatted for you. You have to really put some thought into the layout for this. Color and pattern play, I think this is huge, is taking shapes, basic shapes, whether it's a scallop or a hex, and then just because again, you're seeing the distressed edging here. Instead of it looking contemporary, it looks really, it's taking a pretty wild design idea and like toning it down and making it really feel livable and timeless. And then I'm seeing a lot of outdoor patterns come into the indoor space. So in this mudroom, the Versailles pattern is definitely, it's like an updated outdoor on the indoor.
And natural stone again.
And natural stone is big. I'm not going to linger too long on this page, but if anybody can name any of these, put it into the chat. I'm curious to know if you can figure out any of these pattern names that are so much fun. So I'll take 1 second on this in case you're dying to know. This is pinwheel. We don't use this pattern. I don't think I've ever used this pattern. Have you?
I have. It's fun.
Okay. Herringbone we use all the time. Rip we use all of the time. The Versailles I just showed you guys. I like the Charleston pattern. Again, I feel like that's like a Versailles where you're taking something that maybe has more of like a patio feel and putting it indoors. And then this Harlequin, I bet you with this black and white movement is going to come back in a huge way. I could see your Lorca look really being, lending itself beautifully to that pattern. So for tiling tips, every week we touch on some basic tips. So what do you guys think in terms of, I know we kind of went back and forth on this. It was hard for us to really give concrete tips on tiling because none of us are really going to go and do this ourselves. Let's be real. I don't think anyone who listens to me weekly is actually pulling tile out of their floor, applying mastic or cement mortar and tiling. So give me a few basic tips that you think will take people a really long way when they're trying to think about their spaces.
I think, so this is sort of a very general tip that we came up with because we do get a lot of clients who are so, like you kindly have spoken so lovingly about our materials. They love what we do, but they become overwhelmed with the amount of options available to them, especially in the fact that, in the way that we can customize color, and the opportunities are sort of limitless. So I think it's really important to really, and again, sort of going back to what you said about people being more inclined to embrace their natural gut instinct with design, embracing a dark bathroom and letting it be guided by mood versus trend overtly. I think it's so important to really listen to yourself and know what you like and you go with that. And then we, designers and professionals in the trade can help guide you in the right direction, but to really listen to your instincts. And when you're investing time and energy and money in purchasing material, it's especially a more permanent material like tile, you have to really love it. And so you know that instinctually. So don't second guess yourself in that way.
And to add on that, we were talking, I think a lot of people paralyze themselves in their choices because they get caught up on myths, things they've heard, or rules. Don't do a small tile on the floor because it's going to make the bathroom look tiny, or things like that, or don't do a lot of color because it's never going to for resale value. You got to do what you love. You're the one living in it, go for it. And like you were talking about earlier, that black bathroom, we were on a project where they did black zalige in the whole laundry room, and it was one of the favorite things in the house.
Yeah.
And so if somebody was caught up with resale, they would never have been comfortable choosing a black zalige tile, but it was the big hit. So what Haley's saying, you love it, do what you want, and don't get too caught up in the rules and myths of what you hear that's out there.
And also, unless you're a flipper, the bottom line is anything you're putting into your house is not for resale, because it's going to date in a way. Like, everything looks like the period of time that you put it in, whether it is 10 years from now, because materials change and technology changes, and that's just the reality of it. So you really have to put together a design and a feel that feels comfortable for you. And if you like a white shower and you feel good in all white, then that's what it should be. Mm-hmm. I think, I'm going to gloss through these a little bit quickly, but basically, we definitely, we factor for waste. And I'm assuming that with complicated patterns and also with, a lot of pattern on a tile, you're going to have a little bit more waste. So we do recommend that you use a professional, contractor or tiler to give you your estimates. Even we do that. So if we're doing a tile design, we'll give a basic overall amount that we think they're going to need, but we ultimately have the tiler confirm for us. I think we touched on this whole, myth thing. Mm-hmm. In terms of grout, I think that basically the big takeaway here is that you have to seal your grout. Right?
Yep.
Even the ones that aren't stain, that have the stain resistance in it, supposedly, you still need to seal it, correct?
Yep. Nothing's impervious.
Yeah. And also marble, you need to seal. The big thing with
a lot of times not pre-sealed. So it really depends on the material you're installing also.
Mm-hmm. And I think the big movement in terms of, and I can say this is a trend, is that grout lines have decreased in size. Mm-hmm. So a couple of years ago, it might've been a 3/16 to a 1/4 of an inch. And now we're seeing more 1/16 and 1/8 of inch grout reveals. So that is a bona fide trend and movement in the industry. Although with more traditional patterning coming back, we might see grouts partitions widen again, right?
Well, and hand cut tile does necessitate a slightly wider grout.
Yeah.
But interestingly, zalige, like you brought up before, people are installing without grout,
right?
Without any grout spacing. So it really depends on the integrity of the material you're installing and working with an installer that you really trust, particularly when you're investing in a luxury product.
So I've never used antique white. I don't think that's a color we use a lot. But this is great to know, so that now I know when I get your time. I should use
and this is really straight from Mare. Our creative director really loves this shade. Right. And particularly with our showroom installations on the floor, it's a color that, it is an off-white and even a very, very subtle gray nearly. It's a warmer white, but it ages beautifully with wear. And
right. It's not a yellow white. It's definitely an off-white.
Yeah. Right. And what do you guys think with grout color? Do you like it to go away, to blend? So say you have a tile with 3 or 4 different colors in it. Would you say match the grout color to the field color? Or when would you want to pull out a color in the tile and use that for the grout color?
I personally want to see the tile and I want to make my decision on what we're on that. I use a lot of whites and off whites, but never say never. I'm looking at some cement tiles here in my studio, and sometimes it's a gray. It just depends. It depends on the tile and the client.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We
You can have a lot of fun with grout, especially like you're seeing, you know, more of with like just a standard subway. But if they're linearly stacking them instead and playing with pattern with grout, that's another interesting element that's, you know, perhaps not timeless, but it's something that's here right now and very playful and cool to work with in a different way.
But I'm also that person that has the grout box, and I look at all these amazing colors and think to myself, who uses these? So I might be guilty of sticking with my 3 favorites, but I'm always willing to entertain not using one of those, but I tend to go back to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And with colored tile, you want to be sure that it doesn't stain the surface of the material you're installing. You should always test if you are doing a darker grout and wanting to play with it in that way, it can discolor the surface of the tile. So just
I didn't know that. Well, your tile, because
of any tile, but yeah.
Okay. Tile calculator, just in general, we send you this presentation at the end, so this links to a calculator if you do ever need to figure out tile yourself. I just wanted to put in here a little fun fact that doggy showers are a huge trend, and we recommend probably a very, you know, easy to maintain product for that. So like a granite, which we don't use really anymore, a harder stone, or porcelain. And now we're at the sneak peek of what's coming from Tabarka. So this is your new capsule collection. What is it called?
Oh, good question.
Have a name?
That is, we would love to know too.
Name it.
It's really, Michelle and I actually just today got these images to share with you all. So it's a brand new collection that we're just really excited to see, you know, a different scale of pattern being used and going back to the effect of almost using tile as wallpaper. This reads in a really traditional but fresh way.
50s to me. Does it have a 50s feel to you?
I can see that. Yeah,
right?
I'm in love with them. But keep in mind with our product, our hand painted, you know, you can change color. So when I saw these, I gasped with excitement and loved them. And then immediately my brain started, ooh, imagine this in this color combo and a blue and this. Immediately my brain started designing with them.
This little print here reminds me, do you know that company out of London? I think it's called Little Misprint. It looks a lot like the feeling is so
cool.
sweet. A lot like that
cherry blossom thing.
Yeah, I love this. So these are great. Maybe so we're gonna wrap it up, but maybe we have a surprise question here. Tabarka has generously offered to send a few tiles to anyone who can answer this question. To the first 3 people who can answer this question correctly. So you could type this into the chat if you are interested, and then we will collect your address, which we need you to put into the chat. And then they'll send you a few of their tiles that that interest you. But maybe we should we were going to say, where's Tabarka's hand painted tile and wood line made? But maybe a better question is the person who comes up with the most creative name for the new tile, the new capsule.
Sure, both.
Do both. Yeah.
So you guys can name the collection. That'll be fun. So I'm going to go back here. Whatever inspires you. I'm sure they would love some creative names here. But I'm sure your owners already have that planned anyway. Or if you know where their painted tile and wood line is made, who can name that? So I guess,
Karen, I see at the bottom on the chat there's 6. Are those questions? Do you take those live?
I do have questions. So Michelle pops in now.
Okay.
Michelle, if you're there.
I'm here. Hello.
Hi. Are there any questions?
We don't have any questions, but we do have 3 people that have their answers.
Oh,
okay.
Mary says either Scottsdale or LA. Debbie says Arizona. Andra says LA, and Nicole also says LA.
Okay. So one person had it right, and one person gave 2 answers. so that person needs to
So Arizona is the answer, right?
Scottsdale, Arizona.
And if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to post it now. So I'll wait a second before we end. Ding, ding, ding. Okay. And if anybody also wants to just chime in and come up with a great name for the capsule collection, feel free.
Oh, Debbie has a name. English Countryside.
Love it.
I love it.
Yeah. And then I would just like to say, to add, again, I invite everybody to visit our website. And on our website, you'll see, if you'd like to contact Haley in the LA market, you'll see how to get a hold of her and myself and my other half here at the showroom, Cassie. But all of our contact information is on our website.
Yes.
And if anyone, as the designer on record here, if anyone would like me to select or order tile for a project, I'm capable and able to do that as a trade alliance. So just mentioning that as well. And I have to send you, I have my list.
Wonderful.
All right. So I hope this was informative for everyone and that you've learned a little bit. I so enjoyed chatting with you guys. And I will stay tuned for all of your new releases. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much, Karen and Michelle.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Michelle.